Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate. 48 hours before a Dutch referendum, we've been seeing how identity politics have been playing up, what with the escalating row with Turkey. We're talking about it with André Krul, who's from the Free University of Amsterdam, the founder of Election Compass Online. What's Election Compass Online?
Well, you also have it. It's called Boussole Electorale or Boussole Primaire. So if you just type in Boussole Primaire, you will see that we also develop websites where you answer 17 to 30 questions. And we tell you which candidate or political party is closest to your own preferences. And this helps voters to think about real issues in times where the media and politicians tend to focus on one or two, and particularly about, horse race and conflict news. And we like to let voters think about substance, issues, and policies. So that's what we do.
All right, we're going to be talking about policies in a moment with Joost Niemuller, the author of, sorry for my pronunciation, Quad Nederlanders over Immigranten. How do you translate that into English?
Pretty good. Quad Nederlanders over Immigranten.
Okay.
And the translation?
Dutch are angry. The Dutch are angry over...
Quad means angry.
Okay, the Dutch are angry. With us as well, Evan O'Connell, who is with the UK's Labour Party and with the public relations consultants Aspect Consulting.
Absolutely.
And our and who's not angry.
Yeah.
And France 24 correspondent Fernand Van Tetz. So glad you're with us, Fernand, because you have to explain this to us. Right now, Prime Minister Rutte has 40 seats. He's in a coalition with the Labour Party, the PVDA, which has 35. The latest polls show both falling. The Labour Party support, according to the latest polls, which I guess with polls these days you have to take with a grain of salt, would collapse. Contrast that with the Green Left Party, which has 4 seats in the outgoing parliament and would skyrocket to 20. We're looking at the graph there of popular support. Explain to us how it'll work if the final picture looks like this.
So the problem with this election cycle is that the field is extremely divided. So we have 28 parties vying for 150 seats. And the 2 frontrunners at the moment are Mark Rutte's Liberal VVD and Geert Wilders' PVV. They're both, according to poll release today, slated to win 24 seats each. Now, coming in on the right lane is the CDA, the Christian Democrats. They've gained a seat last week. They're also looking to get involved. But basically what will happen is after the elections, there'll be a lot of horse trading necessary to come up with a coalition in order to be able to govern. Now, for that, there's always compromises that need to be made. And Geert Wilders is basically been excluded by pretty much everyone in advance from ruling. The VVD, which is most closest to it, I'd say ideologically, they have ruled out completely that they would rule with him. Mark Rutte, in a debate with Geert Wilders about an hour ago, emphasized again that the chances of him ruling with the PVD are absolutely zero. And that would leave Geert Wilders out in the cold, even if he is the biggest party, because he will not be able to get enough seats to join a coalition that would allow him to become prime minister and to actually govern.
All right, would leave him out in the cold, but then there'd be a lot of horse trading, as you say.
Right. The horse trading is because everyone has a platform. Voters vote for that platform based on part on the positions that André Krul's Kieskompas has. But afterwards, if you want to form a coalition, you need to be flexible, because if everyone just sticks to their guns, then no coalition is possible. So actually here in The Hague, there's even been rumors that with the current situation, if there's no clear winner, if there's no one that can force people to make compromises, we might end up with another election much, much sooner than in the next 4 years.
André Krul, is that what your research shows?
Well, my research doesn't show we will have a new election. My research shows that there's not going to be a new election. I think they will find a way to govern. Listen, the Dutch are used to having 2 to 4 parties, sometimes even 5 parties in government. Usually it takes 3 to 7 months to form a new government. The old one is just, staying in power and not implementing new policies, but nothing is wrong. The government just still goes on. And so what will happen? What's interesting here? So the point to take from this is that there is a traditional, natural right-wing majority in the Netherlands. What Wilders is doing, he's taking that right-wing majority away from the two major right-wing parties, which are the Christian Democrats and the Liberals. Together, they used to have a nice, comfortable majority. They sometimes needed another small party, but they could govern always on the right. They can't anymore because Wilders kills that opportunity. He doesn't want to be in government. He doesn't want to support them anymore. So they'll have to look to the center, to D66, a libertarian right-wing party, but very progressive and green, or they have to look to one of the left-wing parties. Now, this is the interesting moment in politics, of course, because which of those left-wing or progressive parties will they allow to sit at the government table? And will one of them say, I'll sit with 2 or 3 right-wing parties? Most likely they will not. So this is the nice and interesting coalition game. And the fun is in our politics is you can win an election, but you can lose in negotiations for government. That makes it very exciting.
Evan O'Connell, as a British subject, you have a first-past-the-post system where you vote, each constituency picks their MP, and then Parliament decides who's the Prime Minister. What's your thoughts looking at this Dutch process?
Well, I think it's fantastically democratic. It does make things somewhat unwieldy, for sure.
It sounds like a possible recipe for gridlock.
It does, and as Andre said, the coalition negotiations take between 3 and 7 months generally. They've taken even longer, I believe, at times. But what you end up with probably is, in this election, given how divided the spectrum is, a 4 or 5 party government, a government that stretches from, I'd say, the centre-right to the centre-left, probably, bringing in Greens, bringing in social liberals, the D66, and possibly even the Labour Party, even if they lose a lot of seats. We'll see. But it's not a bad system, and it is, I would say, in many ways, the most democratic in Europe.
All right, it's the home stretch of that campaign. Joost Niemuller, let me ask you a couple of questions. The latest polls, and again, we have to be careful with polls after all that's happened the past year, show a plateauing of the support for the far right, and they show this surge for the Green Left Party. How do you explain this phenomenon?
Well, I don't agree with what I heard before about the ideas, the theories about that it's basically in politics nowadays between left and right. I think there has been a change in politics, not only in the Netherlands but everywhere. It's not basically about left and right, but it's about globalistic and non-globalistic. And what you see that we have some left-wing parties like the Socialist Party, the SP, which is non-globalistic. You have the PVV, which is in many ways not right, not in an economic way, for example, which is also non-globalistic. And you have parties like the one you mentioned before, D66 or the VVD, or even the Christians Party and even the Green parties. They are more on a globalistic line, so they want to have more EU, have more open borders, etc., etc. And the other parties are against it, and it has nothing to do with the division between the left, which was more to a big government, and the left and the right wing, which was more to a private initiative and more capitalism. This is all politics, and now things are changing. And what you see in Dutch politics, because the landscape looks very fragmented, but underneath it you see these other movements going on, which is very interesting in a way, and which happens also, for example, with Trump. Trump was not so much a right-wing person, and is not so much a right-wing person, but he's a non-globalist, and there you see the same changes going on. This whole UKIP, for example, in England, you see the same thing. It's a non-globalist party. It's not so much left or right-wing.
I would argue that this isn't all that new. I would argue that you began seeing this back in 2005 with the European referendum.
That's right.
That was the first moment where you had
the Dutch and the French voted against that constitution.
Exactly. And you had, as our colleague said, the Socialist Party, which, unlike its name might suggest, is the far left party in Holland, and what most would call the far right, allying to oppose the European Constitution. You saw that same alliance of anti-globalist parties. I think the word is quite a good one. That came together to oppose the Ukraine Association Agreement in the referendum last year. and you will continue to see it as well. And it's something that you're seeing in France in the same way. I think that you can certainly draw many parallels between the policies of Marine Le Pen on the one hand and Jean-Luc Mélenchon on the other, who both refuse globalism, both have become, if you look at Mélenchon, he's becoming increasingly souverainiste, as they say, and it's something that you're seeing all across Europe.
You can argue, Fernand van Tetz, that the Netherlands is the nation that in the 17th century invented globalization to a certain degree, and the notion of free trade and the such. Is this, do you agree, the fault line that we're now seeing in the run up to this election? What do you make of the collapse of some of the traditional parties?
Well, I mean, I think you have to also look back at Dutch history. So we used to have pillars. So you had the Catholics, they would shop at Catholic shops, they would marry Catholics, they would vote for a Catholic party, the same thing with the Protestants. So there was this system of pillars in Dutch society, and those were broke down and have been broken down. And so you could also see some of this, and I definitely think this globalization, pro and against globalization, plays a big role. But I think if we look at some of the anger that is forming against sort of the pillar of Islam, where religion is still plays a large role in community, I think maybe we can also put that into relation with the system we came from, which was of pillars, which have now been broken down. And that's also left all these political parties in a bit of a pickle, because they had this structure which they could rely on, and that has completely disappeared. Mm-hmm. And so now we have this new division starting, yes.
New division starting, and yet we talk about identity there, about how people would flock together for Prime Minister Rutte. The risk is real of a far-right victory in this election. Here's what he had to say.
I do believe there is a real risk that on March the 16th we can wake up in this country and Geert Wilders is leading the biggest party.
Now, the Dutch themselves insist that, contrary to Donald Trump, Geert Wilders is not sucking all the air in the room. It's only what the international press is been following closely. Simon Cooper, writing in the Financial Times, says polls show that the biggest issue for voters is something called zorg, which means both healthcare and elder care. People are also worried about public rudeness and misbehavior. Long technocratic TV debates on these topics draw big audiences. He suggests in his piece, André Kroll, that after Wednesday, Dutch politics will get a lot more boring again.
Dutch politics is never boring when you know what's going on, but there's a lot of players, so it might not be easy to follow. And it's true, there always have been multiple dimensions of competition. It's not only in economic left-right, there's always been religious issues and more cultural issues there. So it's quite a complex political system. It's very open, many parties, and they politicize, of course, not only one dimension, right? They also mobilize on religion. Imagine we have a party already since 1918 in parliament that doesn't think women have a place in society. You know, crazy things go on when you open the system. But, you know, the thing is, what's really going on here, of course, that there is no, this is not a race between the extreme right and the moderate right. And what you see here is a clash between those who say, listen, the people are no longer listened to. I represent the people. I'm this populist. I know exactly what the people feel. And whatever happens after this election, when I am powerful, I should be able to do what I want. This is what Trump is doing. And then they bump up against the thing that's called the rule of law, the rechtsstaat, right? Where, you know, power holders are also limited. Even if you have a, you know, majority after one election, that doesn't mean you can change everything. And populists do not agree with that, or they don't want to understand that is the case. That there are unalienable rights, civil rights for people that you just cannot take away by a simple majority in an election. And this clash of all the parties defending the rule of law, defending the rechtsstaat, defending also the rights of minorities, clashes diametrically opposed towards those people who say, no, listen, you have the deserving and the undeserving, and the native population is deserving. The new population, the immigrants, are undeserving, and they shouldn't have the same rights. And we're going to do something about that. And this clash of democracy and direct democracy and full power for those who win an election versus those who say, well, no, no, we have rights and obligations that are always there, regardless of a government or a majority. This is the real clash that's going on, I think. So it's much deeper than just the way that our prime minister suggests.
Much deeper than the way the prime minister suggests, and a lot of the conversation has been about what is it? Something like 10% of the population now, which is of foreign origin, André Krauw?
It's around 1 million people with a Muslim background out of 17 million people. There's more immigrant groups that are not necessarily from Muslim background, so there's more immigration. The Netherlands has had huge immigration waves also in the 16th and 17th century. For example, when Huguenots or Protestants were prosecuted in the south of Europe, we had the huge influx. It actually made our golden age, that people came here with money and capital roots. So immigration has been a part of our society always. And always when you have new groups and society reshapes itself, you have enormous tensions and conflicts that are going to be politicized. The interesting thing in this election also is that there's a new party mobilizing those second and third generation immigrants. This party fights against basically all Wilders' ideas. So you see, I think, just a very natural and very healthy democracy, a very open system that allows all these issues to be on the table, sometimes a little bit too much maybe, but they're out in the open, they're being discussed, they're being politicized. I think in the end, this is a very healthy process. And I also believe that our democracy will survive, as will our rule of law, because I think all the players understand that you need both in order to maintain our pleasant way of life here in Europe.
All right, you were mentioning that about the criticism coming from all sides. Last Friday, before Erdogan's Nazi remnant comment inflamed it all, Rotterdam's biggest mosque tried to clear the air by inviting 7 main parties to talk about the Dutch worries over Islam. There, the city's Moroccan-born mayor, Ahmed Abu Taleb, had this to say.
I see too many Muslims isolated, who are putting themselves in the corner, waiting for it to blow over. Because they're passive, they become spectators by sitting in the back.
If I understand that correctly, Fernand van Tetz, that's a call to Muslim citizens to be more involved, be more civic-minded?
Well, I mean, to vote. This is an election. Turnout matters. Historically, ethnic immigrant communities have a lower turnout. I mean, this has been historically the case. And I think this is also part of integration, that you're saying, you are part of this society. And so claim your place and use the voice that you have been given, use your right to vote to make yourself heard, especially at a time where, there's a lot of polarization going on. I mean, I think, foreign reporters have really been shocked by the kind of rhetoric that we're hearing in the Netherlands, especially, I would have to say, from Geert Wilders. I mean, for outsiders, this has really been shocking. And so instead of, kind of hoping that this goes away, it's like, well, you guys are a big group of people. I think there's about 10 seats out of the 150 go to the 4 biggest ethnic immigrant groups if they vote. So, get out and vote and make sure you matter.
Joost Niemuller, your reaction to that and to sometimes the Dutch known for their blunt talk, but sometimes it goes too far when Wilders calls Moroccan scum, for instance.
Well, what he just mentioned, I mean, when you talk about the Moroccans, for example, in my book, when I talk to Dutch people, they had from the first experience very bad experiences with Moroccan people. For example, women who are assaulted, and you can see now in Rotterdam that a lot of women, young women, say they are assaulted or shouted at by Moroccans called whore or something like that, which goes on all the time. So yes, when you talk those people scum, he has total right to do that. That doesn't mean he called all the the Moroccan scum. I mean, I know Moroccans who are very good people that I can relate to. But I have myself, I see around me so many experience of aggressive reaction from Moroccans just on the street, just coming out of nothing, especially with young people. They have so much of these confrontations, and they are real, and you have to talk about it in the open. And Geert Wilders is doing just that, and I think that's a good thing.
Is it a good thing, Evan O'Connell?
Well, first of all, he did, as I believe, call all Moroccan scum, which is a rather shocking thing to do. What's also quite surprising is that
it's not true.
Wilders himself is partly of Indonesian origin himself, Indonesia being a Muslim country. He often tries to hide this himself. But Holland is a country that was built, as Andre said earlier, on waves of immigration. And these waves of immigration, sometimes they've taken time to integrate. But as your colleague said a bit earlier, if you look at the younger immigrants, those who arrived in the 90s, they're almost entirely integrated in many cases. I think that what we're talking about is in any group of marginalized population, you will always find some bad apples. But to name a whole community,
look at the facts.
To name a whole community as scum, I think it is something that is rather shocking, and I am quite glad that Mr. Wilders has gradually pushed himself to the margins, where to the point where no one will ally with him. I think that he showed when he let the government fall in 2012. That he wasn't a responsible politician, that he didn't want power, he just wanted influence, and he just wanted to essentially be something of a political troll on the political scene.
All right, we're caught by the clock. There's a lot more to say on this topic, and we will be talking about it more as we head to the run-up of the vote on Wednesday. I want to thank Joost Niemuller, Andre Krul, and Fernand van Tetz for being with us from Amsterdam. I want to thank Evan O'Connell here in the studio. Stay with us. Media Watch is next. And we say hello to James Creedon. We began the show talking about that escalation between the Dutch and the Turks, both with their in campaign mode. A two-way street, you might say.
That's right, and lots of traces of that on social media, with comments and cartoons picking up on that spat. We'll start with this one, which is essentially a stop sign, right, or kind of turn around, and you can see there that the red carpet has been removed in the middle by the EU. No red carpet for Turkey. So that's that particular cartoon. You can see another one here, also from a Dutch cartoonist, indicating, I suppose, the degree of hostility between both sides, or on both sides. This is the front page of a Turkish newspaper, Aksam, hopefully that's correctly pronounced. Now, the headline there is Nazi dog. So we can see that the exchange of insults has indeed reached fever pitch in some regards on social media, because a lot of people picking up on those remarks. I'll get back to that in a second. But this is Le Monde, and I think a lot of analysis as well has been saying that the extent to which there's a lot of strategizing going on here. While Erdogan does need allies, he also needs enemies in order to mobilize his own camp. And perhaps that explains the rhetoric. It also explains why he's coming, of course, to various European countries, or representatives of Erdogan, because of how close this vote is, and the fact that expatriates could really be key, Turkish expatriates, the 2 million or so of them. Now, regarding those insults about Nazism, Erdogan violates human rights, says this Dutch commentator, and tries to move Turkey backwards, teaching the Netherlands diplomacy and freedom, ? Give me a break. And that comment comes back again and again and again. People actually going back to World War II history, saying that there was a non-aggression pact between Nazi Germany at that time and Turkey. So you can see that it's getting quite nasty. The history books have been opened up. Francois, this is what Rotterdam looked like after the actual Nazis paid a visit. In other words, the Dutch are saying, we suffered from Nazi aggression, don't please liken us to Nazis. Also, again here, this is Erdogan's version of Europe, according to one point of view, and you can see that that insult might be widely spread out. And many pointing to the fact that this referendum that Erdogan wants to hold is in a bid to consolidate the authority of the presidency, to strengthen the authority of the presidency. Many accusations that it's a sort of an authoritarian move. So you're getting comments like this on social media as well, saying, well, fascist practices, accusing the Dutch of fascist practices. Actually, this referendum in Turkey in a bid to create greater authoritarianism around the institution of the presidency is perhaps closer to that. And I'll just finish with this cartoon. I suppose this, in some ways, sums up what a complex picture it is, because we heard Emmanuel Macron, amongst others, saying that Europe really needs to speak with one voice when it's talking to Turkey. The fact that the campaigning was able to take place, Turkish campaigning was able to take place in France, but not in the Netherlands, means that there has been, I suppose, a disharmony in terms of the European approach. So you can see here, European partners playing ball with each other and not exactly playing as a team. And you can see that that's the Dutch player giving Erdogan a smack of the football into the stomach. But indeed,
what's the tennis racket about? That's what I'm wondering.
I guess they're not playing the same game, are they? It's all very confusing.
All right.
I don't think anyone's going to win at that particular match.
Many thanks for that, James Creedon. I want to thank our panel once again. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.